and then after that, I'm going to talk about career development for graduate students. So career development obviously is an important topic for many. And career development doesn't stop as you graduate or as you grow in your career and you develop and you start working. And I have been in workforce for over 15 years now, but I am constantly developing as well. So I am developing my career right now as well. So it doesn't stop. So during the presentation, feel free to ask me questions, stop me in my presentation, or if you have any questions, you want any specific information, detailed information, just stop me, ask questions. Or we can have a Q&A also, whatever works for you. So before I start talking about career development, I would like to hear from you what career development means for you. And I'm not looking for any dictionary definition or anything, but what does it mean for you? Like what comes to mind?
I heard whisper job.
Well, that's important, very. Okay. Anybody else?
Passion.
What's that?
Passion.
Passion. Okay. Perfect. Great. Okay. Essentially, so I know when you are graduate students, your important part of your next move in your career is obtaining an internship or a job. So that's very relevant. So I'm not going to deny that. And passion, we will talk about passion in a little bit in terms of, as I share a framework towards the end of the presentation. Passion plays a very big role in not only in your career development, but also your long-term success. Because anybody can do a job and be successful in a job, but for longer-term success, a passion needs to be there. And we always don't know what we are passionate about, because many a times through our system of education, we go to school, we graduate, it's like a sequence of events that occur and that prepares us to basically get a job, make a living. And many times we just skip or we forget what we really want to do, what we are really good at. So career development there's an element of passion that plays a very big role in career development as we are shaping our career. So, when we talk about career development, I do have a definition, some sort of. So when we talk about career development, it's not essentially, we don't have to think in terms of like immediate goal, the next goal. It's not a sprint, it's actually a marathon. So the definition of marathon, I don't know if you know the marathon, actually the word came from, it has its Greek origins. So there is this Greek messenger, his name was Philippides. He ran 26 miles from the Battle of Marathon, the battlefield of Marathon, to Athens to deliver a message that they won from the invaders of Persia. So that actually came from, the marathon word came from there. And it's a 26-mile journey. It's not a mile, 2K, 5K. So career development is also a long-term journey. It requires sweat, it requires us to work hard, plan, prepare, and along the way, get feedback from people. Because we can always prepare from our perspective in terms of what we are doing, we are putting effort, but how do we know that's enough, or that's maybe more than enough, or what areas we need to focus more on? So we will talk about all of that in the next framework, but I just want to kind of give you an overview of, when we think of career development, it's not only getting a job, but it's personal development and professional development. Who you are, who you want to be, what you are good at, and how do you take all of that and, essentially make your living and get a job. So self-awareness, again, plays a big role. So can anybody tell me what self-awareness means to you? What do you know about self-awareness? What does that word say to you?
Strengths and weaknesses.
that?
Strengths and weaknesses of oneself.
Strengths and weaknesses.
Okay, okay, good. Anyone else wants to? Okay. Strengths and weaknesses, for sure. And strengths and weaknesses of ourselves and how we make an impact in others as well. So knowing what we are good at, how we do what we do, and how we are making an impact on others, right? And when you actually go get a job, that plays a very big role because we learn everything in school, we are doing great projects, we are driving results, but how do we take that information and make an impact in others during our interviews or in your jobs, in team meetings, because those are the realities, right? When you actually go into a job, you have to work with team, you have to drive results, you have to communicate. So self-awareness plays a very big role, not only knowing our own strengths, but how do we take it and how do we make an impact in others? How people see us. And how do you know that? How do you know, how do I know how you are seeing me right now? I don't. Unless I get feedback from you. Unless I ask you, after a session, like, hey, give me feedback on the session, what went well, what didn't go well. So same applies for you as well, to get feedback. And you can get feedback from your colleagues, friends, your professors on the progress that you're making. Not only on the technical, but on the non-technical side as well. And we will talk about the skills required in industries now and future that are technical and non-technical, because industry keeps changing. So the third bullet point, industries are changing, and if we don't do anything, we fall behind. So I work in the mobility industry, and my career, other than Ritu, mostly has been in manufacturing automotive industry. And so now, in the last, how many ever years I have been in automotive, automotive industry is changing rapidly because, and you might see it in the news and so on, there is a huge push for electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles. And that actually changes a lot for companies like us because we are a tier 1 supplier. We directly work with the OEMs, big three, GM, Ford, Chrysler, etc., and a few other companies. So how do we respond to the change of the industry, right? And very recently, I read an article on McKinsey.com. And the article said that there are 1.3 billion vehicles present currently in the world. And I am originally from India, and many of you are from India. And depending on which part of India you are, there are a lot of cars. And middle class is booming in India right now. So many people can afford a car, but the roads, the infrastructure is the same. So there are small roads and number of cars. So it creates a lot of congestion. And not only congestion, but it also creates pollution, greenhouse gas emissions. So organizations, industries, and agencies, and mostly in Europe, more than the US, are really worried about the greenhouse gas emissions. So how do we combat that as well? So there are a lot of standards and standards are in place to mitigate the issue of greenhouse gas emissions. So that being said, why it's a problem? Why are we even talking about it, right? So it is important for us to know, you, myself, and our companies that I work for, because of these new rules and new standards that are going to be set for the industry changes. It is going to push the industry to come up with different technology, different solutions. So this article that I read some time back, it talked about, so they basically created a survey, and 30% of their respondents said that they were okay, they wanted to try robo-shuttles and e-bikes and e-scooters in the next decade or so. And 70% of the respondents said they are willing to try auto shuttles with basically ride sharing, 3 other people. So that means people are actually getting ready for this next generation technology, next generation industry change, so to speak. And that brings the question of talent, right? So with all those changes, there is a shift in the talent that we need to focus on. Because if we are moving from a traditional internal combustion engine vehicle, ICE vehicle, from EV, there are different types of talents and skills that are required for now and for future. For example, it can be, knowledge of chemistry, metallurgy, cybersecurity, AI, programming language, electronics, computer, and mechatronics, all sorts of, those skills are going to be very, very important. Not only they're important even now, but it's going to be very, very important in the future as well. And I'm talking about mobility industry only, but there are other industries, technology industries, they are making changes all the time. So we had, I was thinking about it, like we were talking about ChatGPT a few months ago. It was a big deal, but now everybody has a ChatGPT on their phone. I have one on my phone, and there are like many other forms of AI other than ChatGPT that we use. So we are actually living it. Technology is changing, things are changing, and we need to keep ourselves updated, up to date with the change in the industry. So, and I'm going to talk a little bit about, how not only the technical skills are important, but how non-technical skills are also important as you are going to be in an industry very soon, finding jobs. Okay, anything didn't make sense or anything you want to know more or less about? Potential. So I think we touched on it a little bit, why career development is important. So, so again, if we don't do anything, we just fall behind. And career development, as I said, it doesn't end. So keep thinking in terms of getting a job, and doing your job is not the end. How do we constantly keep ourselves developing with the changes that happen in the industry, mobility or anywhere else. And learning and development, so we will talk about, or we will see a model, it's called 70-20-10 model of learning and development. And we will talk about learning and development at that time. But what you are learning in school, that's essentially learning and development. So that's also, it is your competitive advantage. What you are learning technically is your competitive advantage. Okay, so what is the purpose again? So as you can see, this flat line, do nothing, fall behind, and maybe it'll go down eventually. But if we do something, we are probably keeping pace. And if we are putting extra effort, getting knowledge from the industry, what's needed, what I can do more, self-awareness, we are actually getting ahead of the game, so to speak. So the first sentence, it might not resonate with you, or it might. I had a hard time actually living it. So it says, top doesn't need to be the goal. And it sounds contradictory to what I'm just saying, right? I mean, if top doesn't matter, then why do anything? Why even go to school and study? So what it means actually, that top, it matters, and depending on the individual's aspirations, goals, top matters. Like you already may have a position in mind that you want to be, but getting there may not be a kind of up type of ladder climb. It might look like a rock climbing wall, essentially. Anybody who does rock climbing here or experience rock climbing indoor? Oh, okay. Great. So sometimes, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. So sometimes, as you rock climb, in order to move up, you cannot always just go up. You sometimes have to step sideways or take a step back, and then find the right position to actually move up, right? So it's not always like, okay, now I'll just grab and go. So career development can be that. So sometimes in order to gain knowledge, gain experience and skills, you may have to move in your career as you get into jobs and whatnot. You may have to take lateral roles. You may have to move sideways to get a better vantage point to move up, essentially. So I can share a personal experience. So I did a master's back in India in microbiology. So, and many of you who are from India, you know that, and I don't want to stereotype, but this is how I grew up. Science is drilled into you. So if you do not study science, that's not the greatest thing. So that's how I was raised, that I have to do science, medical or engineering, if not, then something in science. So, and I love science. I feel science has given me a logical brain that has helped me even, in the human resources career. But that was not the biggest passion of mine. And as so I was in India, I did microbiology, and then I worked in a pharmaceutical company for about a year or two. And then from there, I moved to the US and I did my master's in human resource and organizational development because I really wanted to work closely with people. And as I took that career, I had to take a step down because I had to learn everything from scratch. I did not know anything about management. I had no idea, how to go about it. So I took internships and I started at the bottom to learn all the skills from about human resources. So again, that was my rock climbing. So sometimes you can choose safer, riskier moves, and sometimes when you go to an organization, organizations do invest a lot nowadays in employees. So whatever you're seeing here right now, it's not exactly the same as to what we tell our employees, but many of the elements that I am sharing here with you, we actually share with our current employees. So when you join workforce, go to a company, many companies nowadays, they have career development, talent development standards, and you might get a presentation like this. And you'll be like, oh, I got it, I know, I saw this before. So that being said, so now let's think about so I talked a little bit about technical skills for the future, right? And so what are the non-technical skills? Who can tell me what non-technical skills mean and what can they be? What's non-technical skills and why they are important?
Maybe networking skills.
Networking, okay. So tell me, in order to network, what do you need? What skills do you need to network? As a person, what skills would you need to be able to create a networking?
Communication.
What's that?
Communication.
Okay, very good.
Academically.
That's on my list. You hit it. Anything else? Okay. So communication is a big one, honestly, and communication takes many shapes and forms. Communication can be presenting, like I'm presenting right now, or communication can be between your team members, between your supervisor, professor, or maybe you have direct reports. Your communication between them. So that plays a very big role. Again, because I'm from mobility industry, so I have to emphasize about mobility industry. So when we think about mobility, and again, going back to EV and hybrid, so many a time, so I can talk from our company perspective. We have our engineering team and we have our business development sales team, right? So our business development team and engineering team, they work together. They have to share information with each other, right? Because if engineering team is working in silos, not sharing information with business development, then they don't know what to share with their customer. And then the business development team, as they talk to the customer, they need to bring back information to the engineering team so that there is this collaboration that works out to drive business solutions and products. So as we think in terms of EV hybrid change, so this, electric vehicles are new for everybody. Even OEMs are learning. It's not that they got it. So they are still learning, and as suppliers, we are learning. And sometimes when both parties are learning, nobody is an expert, that creates a lot of tension. And it's like, it can create a lot of confusion also. So communication plays a very big role in terms of being able to negotiate, right? Negotiation skills is another very important thing. And negotiation doesn't mean that you're cutting a deal. I have a 10-year-old daughter. I negotiate every day with her. So negotiation can mean anything, like even if you're trying to influence someone, and you're trying to negotiate your point with their point of view. So negotiation skill plays a very big role as we are going into an unknown. So speaking of unknown, another skill set that's important is being able to tolerate ambiguity. So sometimes, and I have a science background, and I can speak for myself, I cannot speak for you, but I know my science background has given me an interest towards data, like black and white approach. This is the data, this is what I can derive from this information, and this is my result, and this is it, essentially. But in life, that doesn't always work. So data sometimes may tell you one thing, but you may have to do something different, risky, to actually get results. So that's something, another, ambiguity plays a very critical role. How do we make sure that we are okay with ambiguity, essentially? Okay, is it making any sense, or I'm boring you to the core? Okay, all right, so I said that here's what else. One thing comes to my mind is, so generally speaking, electric vehicles are easy to assemble than ICE vehicles because it requires a lot that goes on in ICE than EV. But EV vehicles, they work at a very high voltage. So when you work at high voltage, it requires some safety knowledge, safety concerns. So safety is also a knowledge that is going to be very important, and it is important even now to know about it. So I don't know, does your course cover any safety related anything, any information? Your graduate program? Great. All right. Any questions? Anything you want to add specifically from your perspective in terms of skill set, technical or non-technical? If you have read articles in the news and whatnot, have you anything that comes to mind I may not have covered that you want to share with your team here? No? Okay, no worries. So now that I have shared all this information with you, now kind of take a look at it, all these pieces of information into creating more of a concrete plan, a framework of how to go about it. So first of all, in terms of, when you think in terms of building a career, it's a conscious decision. So your career development plan, you can, for you right now, it can be short-term and long-term. The short-term plan may be get an internship, get a job, and these are the skill sets that I need to get. But again, your long-term plan, maybe 5 years down the road, maybe your 5-year plan, maybe you have a 10-year plan. And your career development is timeless for you. So one suggestion is that, and we talked about it in the beginning, is to identify, people who can give you feedback, real feedback. So identify 3 to 5 people who can be your mentors, if you have mentors, or it can be your friend, colleague, or if you have had an opportunity to do any internships. Anybody had any internships experience so far? Undergrad or no? Okay.
These are all graduate students.
Okay.
First year graduate students, they may have a chance to do that, but all undergraduate students do go for internships.
Okay.
Yep, they do 3 as part of the curriculum for engineering science.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you can take all this information and share during your interviews. So they'll be, oh wow, you already know a lot. So identify, I would say identify down the road, and this presentation, it is, I would say this doesn't end here today with you. You can take it with you, long term also. Because when we hire new hires, whether they're, no matter what career stage they're in, they're early career or mid career, we do provide this information to them. We train them on career development paths in our organization, and many organizations do that. So I, think in terms of what you need to improve on, skills, education, or experience-wise. Again, I'm going to talk about going back in terms of self-awareness. So where you stand today, that is very important. What you know today, your experience, is very, very important. So where you stand today, reflect back on the feedback and understand where you are today. What are the skill set you have? What are the skill set you may need? And where's the gap, essentially? And then if you have received any feedback, was there a trend? Did somebody, maybe you have received feedback throughout your career, growing up, like, hey, you're great at teamwork. And somebody may have said, oh, you're such a good leader, or you're so good at communication, and you're so good at spotting, differences or whatever. So if you think in terms of what people might have said, or you might have observed in terms of your strengths, and if there is a trend that you can see. And sometimes, when we work as a team, whether we receive recognitions as a team or as an individual, that was also important to know, because if you received recognition as a team, that says something, and if you receive recognition as an individual, that is also something different. So think in terms of, what is that recognition that you have received, and what it means for you, what it does for you, so to speak. Okay. And another exercise is to understand your strengths and areas of improvement. There are two ways to do it. You can sit down and list your strengths and weaknesses, take the whole day, or kind of go top of the mind. Like, I know these are my strengths. I know these are my areas of improvement, so to speak. Because those are some of the interview questions as well. People would always ask, and you don't have to just say it just because you have to say it. It's you know you're actually good at it, and things may change in the future. Okay. Some similar, and you can read it if you want. I remember saying all of these things. So, identifying gaps, related to experience, education, and experience is important. So now you have time. So your first semester. Is it first semester? You said no. First year. First year. So if you want to understand in terms of what you want to do, and you still have time for getting extra projects, assignments, and taking more responsibilities or lead as you identify your strengths, essentially. So you have time to bridge that gap if you have identified related to experience and education. Okay. So this is kind of a framework I have developed, and it includes, and it has, I have created some resources for you as well under this framework, so I can talk about those briefly as well. We have probably 10-15 minutes. So, but I do want to cover a couple of concepts before we get to the end. So this is the framework. So whatever I have just shared with you, everything boils down to this slide, essentially. So the first step of developing a career development plan is the self-awareness piece. Know yourself, what you like, what you don't like, what are your strengths, limitations, and sometimes our limitations are just self-imposed. We think that's our limitation, but maybe not. Get feedback and ask your professor, like, do you really think I need to improve on this? They may share some additional feedback that then you think of yourself. Another point is your learning style. So, and I don't have a tool here, but there's a tool that's available on internet. You can actually do a survey and then identify your own learning style. Some people are visual learners, some people are auditory learners, and some people are kinesthetic, so they just like to touch and build. I know my husband is a mechanical engineer. He loves to build things, so I know he's more of a kinesthetic, but I'm a visual learner. I like watching videos, and I learn better with that. So know your learning style. That also helps you kind of drive your development further, essentially. And there are certain tools. So when you join an organization, and I think we do it for our co-ops and interns also. So we have an assessment tool. It's called psychometric assessment. It's called Acumax. It basically measures somebody's natural wiring, essentially your communication preference, your work style, and we have our interns co-ops also complete. So many organizations send out psychometric assessments to prospective employees. So I have some tools for you if you want to kind of understand your own self-awareness, increase self-awareness through those tools. So at some point you will have to experience that because organizations will send you that information. And there is no pass or fail. You don't have to be thinking about, oh, I could click this and this and definitely, I'll pass. But again, the goal is to, when an organization hires an employee, they want to know the best environment they can thrive in. What is their communication style? What is their work preference? And how do we give them that? Or, what are the projects they will be then interested in? Because sometimes certain people like to do things one at a time, and some people like to do multiple things at a time. If they're doing one thing, they just get bored. So our assessment measures that as well. So more to come in the next slide. Market needs and trends. So we just talked about it. Market trends, going forward, think in terms of, so this is electrical and computer science, right? So what are the market trends? What are the industry changes telling you? So keep yourself up to date. And I have shared some resources. I'm sure everything is in your fingertips, with a click. So that's available to you. And your research can help you create that passion and pathway for you. So same thing, the career exploration we just talked about, and how to create plan. What are your primary goals 1 to 3 years? So the last bullet point, actually, I'm going to expand on that in the next few slides because that's the crux of the thing, right? The whole presentation. Create a plan and action. So draft your 1 to 3 year development plan and use SMART goals. Anybody familiar with SMART goals? Have you heard the acronyms SMART? No? Okay. And SMART goals is very interesting, actually. I'm going to share a video with you. And you can use SMART goals in your current day-to-day life, work life in general. So let's kind of dive deeper. Maybe watch that video.
This is 2-minute classroom, and today we're talking about setting goals using the SMART method. Goal setting is a great activity anytime, but is especially popular around New Year's, at the start of the school year, and leading into sports season. I would love to hear some of your goals in the comments, and I'll put some of mine in the description below. SMART is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. We'll go through each of these using the example goal of doing well on your next exam, a common goal for students. The first step is to make the goal specific. Doing well on your next exam is not specific. Try to answer the questions of what, when, and why. Let's specify your what as scoring at least 90% on your next science exam. For the when, it'll be whatever the exam is. Let's say it's in 4 weeks. The why is very important, as this is your motivation for the goal and something you can look back on if you get discouraged. It could be to improve your grading course, to score higher than a friend, or because you want to get to a great university. Whatever will motivate you to keep working on the goal. So now we have a much more specific goal. Score at least 90% on the next science exam 4 weeks from now to help you get to a great university. This goal is looking great, but we're not done yet. The next step is to make sure the goal is measurable. That means there are some metrics attached to the goal to let you know if you reach your goal or not. Looking back at our goal, we see that it is to score at least 90%. This is very measurable, and once you've taken the test and received a score, you will know whether or not you hit the goal. This is why doing well in your next exam is a poor goal. It is not measurable, and there is no clear way to define success or failure. The next step is to check whether the goal is achievable or not. In this step, you want to break the goal down and answer the question of how you will achieve this goal. What do you need to do in the next 4 weeks to get at least 90% on the exam? Some examples may include taking notes in class, spending 30 minutes 3 nights per week studying for the exam, and partnering with a friend a week before the exam to review notes and go through a study guide. The point is, you need a plan. Break the goal down into smaller goals that all feed up to the main goal. This will give you a clear path to success. The fourth step is to ensure the goal is relevant. And this step is more of a gut check to see if it fits well with your life right now. Ask yourself the following questions. Does this goal align with my long-term objectives? Does it keep me on track with other goals in my life? Will focusing on this goal pull me away from other more important goals? After thinking through this step, you should feel confident your goal is relevant and even more motivated to achieve it. Scoring at least 90% on your next science exam is relevant because it will give you confidence in school and feed into larger goals around future education and career. The last step is to make the goal time-bound. A time-bound deadline acts as a target and helps you work backwards and set smaller steps to get there. If you set a fitness goal to do 100 consecutive push-ups, but don't set a deadline to reach that goal, then it probably won't happen. Hitting a certain score on an exam is time-bound by default because there is a specific date for the exam, which allows us to break the goal into smaller steps leading up to the exam. And here's a bonus tip. If you truly want to reach your goals, then you have to write them down and look at them often. I recommend keeping a daily or weekly planner to track your progress. I've put some excellent planner recommendations in the description that will help you make your goals a reality. Remember to share your goals in the comments. I'll read and respond to as many.
Okay. Well, that's it. What do you think? I have one other video. I don't know if we have enough time or not, but it's essentially on SMART goals. And these slides will be available to them, right?
Yes,
Okay.
they are already,
Oh.
we all can access that, right?
So if you want, feel free to watch them. And then this actually has clickable links. And these are some self-awareness tools. Feel free to review. And then these are some additional videos as well. Okay, so moving on from SMART goals to development planning, right? We talked about, again, I'm gonna go back, sorry. So plan and action, right? We talked about creating the 1 to 3 year plan, and SMART goal can help you create that, specific, measurable, SMART for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. I tell myself a simpler example, which is very personal, and it's a goal, it's an ongoing goal for me. So if I tell you my goal is to lose weight, that's a goal, right? Everybody, that's a goal, but is it SMART? Probably not. So SMART goal would be if I say I want to lose 10 pounds in 5 months. And how I measure it is I'm going to go to the gym 4 or 5 times a week, 4 times a week, let's say, be realistic. Spend an hour, focus on some healthy diet and whatnot. And then I do it for 5 months. And that will help me lose 10 pounds. That's very specific, it has some measure, and it is realistic because I didn't say that I want to lose 10 pounds in a week, and that would be unrealistic. So, so put some specifics in your goals to make it smart, not just some goal that just, is somewhere out there. And it is okay to dream, if a goal is not smart, then it's a dream. And it's okay to have dreams, we have to dream to make it a goal and a reality. Okay, so what is 70-20-10 model? So we actually, in our organization, we use this extensively. And so 70-20-10 is a model for development planning. So how we do it in our organization is that every salaried employee in our organization, they actually have a development plan. How we break it down is based off of their current performance, where they stand. We give them goals in terms of like they come up with it. So essentially, they and their supervisor come up with development goals. And development goals can be for future also. So if somebody is performing at a very great level, then they can be ready for a future role, right? So how do we create a development plan for them to get them in that future role? So we use 70-20-10 model for their development. And this can apply to you as well. And I'm sharing a lot of information that we use in our regular jobs because you guys are ready for that, essentially in a year or less than a year. So 70% stands for learning from experience. So anything that we learn in order for it to stick, 70-20-10 model says that 70% learning occurs through experience. And what that means is what you are learning, you're actually applying, you're doing, you're practicing. Then 20% learning happens through coaching and mentoring. So somebody you are working with, some mentor is helping you, kind of showing you what needs to be done and so on. And 10% is essentially instruction. So what I'm doing right now, giving you a lecture, is actually 10% essentially. So, which is sad, but if you take this 10% and apply it and create goals like we discussed, and you're actually doing it, then you're making it 10% and 70%, 80% actually. And if you create that goal and development, and you're sharing with your mentor, your professor, and you're taking their feedback, advice, implementing it, then you're also applying 20% of it. So that's your 100% development plan. Am I making any sense? Okay, any questions? Okay. All right. I think we will be done very soon. So, and then there are some examples. And there is this link that I got this nice picture from. So feel free to use this if you want more information. So this is, again, this is, Professor Carr said in the beginning, this lecture was very non-technical, so I'm not imparting any highly technical information. There is some technicality involved in terms of obviously planning and understanding and using resources and tools. So under each category, I put together some resources, if you're interested, to go back and look into. I'm not going to open each link here. So psychometric assessments are, nowadays, are very much used in organizations. So feel free to use them to understand yourself a little bit more. The first one talks about personal values. We all have our personal values. We get our values from how we are raised, where we come from, our background, our perception of, things in general, but sometimes we just don't pay attention, what are our values? Because as you grow in life and in your career, your values will either push you or hold you back. So think about it, try to see what are your values. So that provides some information on that, and bio character is also, it talks about values, and then 16 personalities, it's have you heard of MBTI, Myers-Briggs Personality Assessment Test? Okay. So 16 personalities is a version of MBTI, and it's free, and it gives you some fantastic information, and it has some fun part as well, because once you take the test, it gives you some fictional character resemblance. So, somebody might be Captain America. Somebody might be, I don't know, I'm a fan of Lord of the Rings, so they put Lord of the Rings characters as well, so that's fun. Then the second one, I highly encourage, these are not links, but highly encourage, as you are graduate students, if you are undergrads, that would be different, but you are graduate students, I highly encourage you to understand the market trends and needs and where things are going, so to speak. So keep it, and if you are not already doing that, certain links, and these are just examples, find your own, and read, essentially. So some more information on 70-20-10, SMART goals, and some additional definition on this as well.